Does the hot season get hotter? That's incredible. I'm a real Canadian. Ooh, thank goodness for air conditioning. So I'm walking from Akuti to here, and I'm feeling hot, but I'm complaining. I'm not aware. There's a difference, isn't there? I can walk, oh, it's really hot. Oh, yeah. As opposed to hot feels this way. And that's a big difference, isn't it? Because when I awaken to the feeling of heat, I'm actually silent with the experience. When I'm grumbling about the heat, I know I'm hot, but I'm not really aware of it. I'm just, doing something, complaining or being amazed or whatever. And that's what I'm suggesting we're trying to do when we talk about awakening to the way things are. And those are good examples where kind of know what's going on, but you're not really awake to it. So the language I quite often use is to make conscious the way things are. And I like that language because it's not like concentrating on the way things are or fixing them or doing anything. Just let it come into consciousness and be what it is. And it seems to, at least for me, when I use that kind of language, then it's not just about the heat, it's also about this silent knowing, which gets emphasized through that kind of language. So walking from my kuti, which is, I've got the best kuti in the world, very nice, very posh, very comfortable. I have a good supply of tea and coffee. Everything's perfect. Then I go outside, it's hot. Right? It's hot. So the experience of pleasure is like this, comfortable. And then the experience of heat is not comfortable. And all of life is that, isn't it? You're never going to get it not, that's the only way it can be. So obviously there's no refuge in my kuti. As soon as I leave the kuti, it changes. But if I can be grateful for the kuti, which I am, and I can enjoy the space, which I do. So it's not like I have to sleep on a bed of nails and drink a borapet or something like that. I can enjoy the beauty of life. But when it changes into something which is, say, in this case, I mean, it's very minor, but it's a good example, to something uncomfortable, I can actually touch silence with the uncomfortable. Can't I? I don't need the comfortable to touch silence, because silence, knowing, awareness, puru, penyang nieng, it's like this, is not dependent on the quality of the experience. And that's why it's the gateway to Nibbana. It is not dependent on the quality of experience. Happiness is dependent on the quality of experience. Good health is dependent on the quality of experience. Successful business is dependent on the quality of experience. Nice relationships with your in-laws is so on and so forth. But awareness or knowing, it is as it is, and it's really not dependent on anything. It doesn't really, it doesn't, you think it depends on something, but it doesn't, because it's always there. Awareness or presence is always there. So what I was suggesting this morning is begin to make that a kind of a theme, I would say, a theme of your contemplative life. And I do see life as a constant contemplation, and meditation being a way to really heighten the contemplative themes that I like. And my own interest in this is the language that we have from the text. There is the deathless, the Amata Dhamma, Amaravati. There is the unconditioned. There's Nibbana, there's peace, there's the island, there's the harbor. And if there were not that, there would be no release from suffering. So I've always been interested in that kind of language and that way of contemplation. And then from that, I look at all experience, bodily, mental, emotional, social, and it all is dependent. It is born and dies. It begins and ends. So I realized that what the Buddha realized, the peace that the Buddha speaks to us about, can't be an experience, a sense experience in the way we usually think of that. It has to be something more subtle. And the subtlety is it's the awareness rather than the experience that's important. So in this morning's suggestion, I said, well, can you go to the silence of knowing? And can you do that by saying a word and then listening to the silence after the word? So I said, it's like this. Now, if I'm walking from my kuti and it's hot and I just mumble, it's like this, it's like this, it's like that. That's not really what we mean, is it? That's just mumbling, it's like this. But actually, if I just stop and say, yeah, what is it really like to feel the heat? Well, it's like this. Then I touch the silence. And that's what I'm asking you to do in awakening the mind. So if you do that 5 times in an hour, 6, and those little gaps will then be a suggestion into the future that thought, the narratives of thought, the stories that we get caught up to are not who you really are. They're just khandhas, they're just experiences. But who you really are is that silent knowing. And I think all of us have struggled with, anyone who is a meditator struggles with thought because it's so persistent and seems to have a life of its own. And I think all of us have tried to meditate by getting rid of thought. I certainly have. So kind of ideas of control or samadhi where you control the mind, it's never worked for me. I don't know about you. But like these suggestions about noticing the space between thoughts is really from my teaching with Luangpor Viradhammo, and he taught that right early on in Wat Nanachat and at Chithurst, and he say, look at that space. You can notice that space, not by getting rid of thought, but actually just noticing space. That's different. So as you're, if that's a kind of underlying theme, then you can pick up whatever meditation technique you like. You can use the breath or metta bhavana, but you're not doing it so much to control the mind, but just to notice the silence witnessing of the mind. And I don't know if that makes sense, but if you're trying to control the mind, you can't meditate for very long. You can't keep it going. It's just, you just get too frustrated, because even if you're successful for a little bit of time, the next time you're not successful, you feel very, very frustrated. But this sort of welcoming awareness, you can do that for long periods of time. So like welcoming. Now, walking from my kuti to here, I didn't welcome the heat. I got here as quick as I could. If I had to live here and I had no air conditioning, well, you better sort this out, Viradhammo. I mean, I survived somehow, Wat Nanachat for a few pansa, but physically I would find it difficult. But so what? Can I still practice within physical difficulty? Must be able to, otherwise I'm toast. And I was speaking to someone about like chronic illness, and so many people seem to have these autoimmune conditions now. We have 2 monks that have Lyme's disease, and a lot of people who have chronic pain, and that's like really bad heat, isn't it? And you can't get away from it. You can do all the medicine you want and do the medicine whatever way you can, but if push comes to shove and you're feeling the pain, then what can you do? What can you do? Well, I find that if you can get this idea of background and foreground, that the background is the silent knowing and the foreground is the pain, and then you can see how in the foreground, there is desire to get rid of the pain. Then you can begin to see, oh, there is pain. There's the desire to get rid of pain, which is something extra. And there's the silent knowing. And that's a difficult investigation, but I know from our monks who have these chronic illnesses, they do find a tremendous amount of peace within serious pain in the body. And how could you do it other than by taking refuge in awareness rather than the pain? So if life presents such horrible things to you, then okay, it's not nice, but that's your practice. That's what you have, that's what you have to do and what you have to learn from. So in maybe I could just talk a little about walking meditation in the same vein. So the postures that we traditionally do, sitting, standing, lying, and walking, we hear about those a lot. Of those four, I've never developed standing posture, so I'm not a teacher of that. Ajahn Sucitto is very good. Anyone who does Qigong, I should think they're very good. So if you want to develop standing meditation, you seek out a Qigong teacher. They'd probably be very, very good for that. I've never developed it. So in walking meditation, as probably all of us have done, when I started walking meditation way back when, I was just trying to get rid of thinking. I'm sure we've all done that, right? Where we have 30 paces. I like a good long walking path if I can. But if I want, I can do 5 paces. So Ajahn Chah would say, well, if it's raining outside, then just walk 3 forward, 3 back. 3 forward, doesn't matter, right? You're just moving around. But what I found is I would set my mind, okay, I'm not going to think. And I'm going to count my steps, and I'm going to be aware of every left, right, hopeless. I'd be lost in la la land, because the mind it doesn't work that way, because thought arises naturally. It's a natural phenomenon. You are not the thinker. It feels like you're the thinker, but if you're the thinker, don't think. Right? So what stimulates thought is memory. So many things, but it might be some experience, but quite often it's memory. So I'm walking back and forth, and I remember an argument with George the neighbor, and then that memory comes up, and then all of a sudden I'm yelling at George the neighbor, thinking. Then I think I shouldn't be thinking. But was it really me, or was it just the way the mind is constructed with memory and thought and story and habit? So if you're trying to get rid of thought, it won't work, because thought is a very, very natural phenomenon. But if I just continue yelling at George all meditation, and then the bell rings, that's not very skillful either. So just to be caught in the narratives and stories, that's not skillful. But what you can do is take, as I was saying this morning, the moment when you notice you're thinking is the moment of awakening. Now, in that moment, my insight around that came about through asking this question, is presence ever absent? And I know it's an enigmatic and strange question to ask, but as I observed my mind around the thinking process, I saw that when that feeling of having been lost in thinking was there was a feeling that I haven't been present. So then I questioned that. I said, actually, was presence ever really absent? Was I ever not there or not here? And that was a very, very helpful insight, because see, well, actually, presence is always there. It's just my identity with thought and ego created this idea that I am someone who hasn't been present. So I don't know if this is difficult, but it was a very important insight for me. So what happened, I noticed that I'd be meditating, then there'd be the feeling of being lost in thought, and I'd create a sense of self. I am someone who should be trying to meditate and not think. And that's what we call avijja. Avijja pachaya sankara, sankara pachaya vijnana. So then I am a person who has too much thinking. Now I have to try to stop thinking. And that very formulation of avijja is the problem. Whereas when I saw that, when I didn't believe that I was someone who has been thinking and I have to get rid of thinking, then I saw that the present moment clarity was always there. Presence was always there. I don't know if that's too whatever, but it was an insight which took me a long time to understand. And I did it through questioning. I tried to really be attentive to that moment when there is the awakening to thinking, because that's enlightenment, really, in some sense. The mind, you know the way things are. You don't have to become anything. You don't have to become the person that is now not going to think. That's the very problem. So as I sort of reflected on that, I saw, yeah, quite often when that insight is there, the mind just opens into present clarity very, very clearly, no problem. Whereas the other way around of just trying to control and you know, I'm not going to think, it never worked for me. I don't know about you. It never worked for me. So my request of you, I suppose, is notice the moment of awakening. Try to make that a moment that actually I'm home now. I don't have to become anything. There's nowhere to go. This is home. There's no need for desire. And then investigate around that. So in the walking meditation, say, back and forth, what if you take that theme up, then when you're walking and you awaken to the fact that there's a lot of thinking, then stop and just establish present moment clarity. Oh, good, I'm back. Or it's like this. Just keep doing that and keep noticing the silent gap between thoughts rather than concentrating in order not to think. There's a huge difference. It's a huge difference in attitude. And then just trust in awareness. Just trust in awareness that awareness will take care of things. When you reach the end of the path, also then the end of the path is a stopping. So if you've been thinking about tomorrow or whatever, then you get to the end of the path, it just stops the mind naturally. Unless you just keep spinning around, so you have to stop. So really stop. And it's like this. Turn around. It's like this. So you're introducing gaps of silence into the tendency to be thinking a lot. And then trust in those gaps of silence. So rather than like, I use this model of background, foreground. I use that a lot in my own practice. So foreground is planning, thinking, whatever distraction might be there, and background is silence. So then as I'm walking, I can see the mind picking up the foreground of planning, or I'm into weaving these days. So my mind goes into designing rugs. That's where it likes to go. So no, but that's the foreground. And where's the background? Silent knowing. Silent knowing. And that's very peaceful way to meditate. And if that works for you, then and you start to sense the background is silence, you start to hear the sound of silence that Luangpor Viradhammo talks a lot about, the stillness of mind. So these are very good words to introduce, just stillness. The stillness, knowing, still knowing, introducing that kind of language into your practice. And then the way of a retreat is that, like most of you have probably been very busy, I suspect, coming into this retreat. Um, so you're all of a sudden, you're cold turkey. You hit a brick wall, whatever you want to call it. And all of a sudden you stop. Now, if you have any issues from work, family, your own health, they're going to come up into consciousness, right? Because there's a momentum to your social life. There's a momentum to your family and business life, to your health life. And these are the conditions which will create thought. So if you really had a difficult business situation because of COVID, that'll come up. If you had an argument with someone, that'll come up. So these things will come up, and that's what will produce the thinking. And that's natural. So you have to be very patient. You can't just say, okay, now I'm going to do the retreat and I'm not going to think. Good luck. It doesn't work that way. But if you realize, no, just be patient. So patience is, whoa, it's so important, isn't it? It's like this. Oh God, it's like this. And again and again and again, you keep putting that language of patience into the situation. Very helpful, very, very helpful. Just there's patient endurance and there's impatient endurance. Either way, you have to endure. So you can do it patiently or impatiently. So sometimes you'll get lots of unfinished business, as we say, coming, like resentments maybe. Those can be very strong. People have been unkind to you or unfair to you. And, that'll come up into the mind. Oh, it's not fair. Da, da, da. Oh, unfairness feels this way. Again and again and again and again and again. So if you're very, very patient and you're emphasizing the background of stillness and knowing, or puru, then that begins to dominate. And the foreground of all your experiences and memories and all of that has less and less power. But you have to give it time. You have to kind of just trust in the process. Maybe one more thing on posture. Most of you know that I like to teach lying meditation, not Lying, but for those who spell English. That'd be interesting, lying meditation. I'm 36 years old. Lying down meditation is a posture which I developed. You've heard this story, but for those of you who haven't investigated lying down posture, it's a very good posture. I've developed it over the years. So if you want to try it, it's not a posture that you're using to fall asleep. It's a posture that you wake up, you have your coffee, you have your shower, and then you lay down, right? So realize that meditation is not for falling asleep, huh? Because think about it. If you're, you go, I'm going to just meditate before going to sleep. That's going to ruin you. So meditation is about being bright and present and knowing. So sometimes people say, yeah, I use lying my meditation to take a fall asleep. Well, great. So then when you get up, do it again. So the way I've developed it, it's from the school of yoga nidra, and nidra means sleeping, but it's sleeping with awakeness. So you lay down in Shavasana, the posture, and you lay. I tried early on. I tried hard surfaces because I was a monk. Monks can't have comfort, and I realized, oh, that's stupid. So I have a soft surface I meditate on. I use this posture a lot because my knees are often very swollen, not swollen enough. So lay down in Sarvasana, put a bolster or pillow under your knees. Some people actually meditate that I know who have lower back problems. They meditate with their knees up, with their feet flat. I know one woman who has scoliosis, twisted spine. So she uses that posture. But the thing is that if you don't raise your knees, you have more pressure on the small of your back. So put something under there. Get your neck set up so that, like, if you're sitting, if you're doing sitting practice, think about it. Your neck has to be right. If you're like that, it's not good. And if you're like that, it's not good. So set up your pillow so that your neck and all of that is in a good alignment. Take time to do that. Then once you're comfortable, and this is a very good thing to do, say to yourself, I'm going to make one adjustment, 10% more comfortable, and then I won't move. That's a really good one to do. So then you're kind of, okay, I got one more chance. Okay, now don't move. And that's the whole secret of it. Because what happens is, so now you're in Shavasana, you know you're okay, it's not painful, but now you want to move. Within 10 seconds, you have an itch, just a little itch. And then you scratch. That's restlessness. And the restlessness is both mind and body. So then you don't move. And then you want to, no. And then, no, 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 no. And what you're doing is you're aware of restlessness. You're not buying into restlessness and the desire around restlessness. Because when you're restless, you want to move your body to get comfortable, but you know darn well you don't have to move, so it's not dangerous. So that's very good methodology there. And then what's very good is whole body awareness, to see your body as feeling. And body meditations where you perceive your body as feeling rather than concept. In other words, if I say to you, feel your left hand, and you really feel it, then it's no longer a concept. It's energy, it's vibration, it's heat. And that's what you want to do with whole body awareness. You're there and just let the body be, how should I say? Let the feeling in the body become conscious. Let the body be feeling, let's say, whatever language you want to. So you're not conceptualizing now with the body, and just let it be there. And then the stillness produces the samadhi, I would say. And by samadhi, I think a simple way of talking about samadhi might be sustained, still, awakened, something like that. If you get the very fancy ideas of samadhi with John and all that, it's very easy to get caught up into trying to attain. And also you feel frustrated because you can't do it and you feel like a loser. Whereas if you make samadhi something more simple, not something you have to attain, but something you can know right now, like stillness, you can know that. Presence, you can know that. Awakened mind, you can know that. And how can I sustain that? It makes it a much more user-friendly concept. So then you lie there and then you just try, still presence, sustained knowing. And then your mind goes off. The thing is, when your mind starts to go off your body also, you lose attention to your body. And the requirement to stay still with your body helps you with the mental agitation. Because as soon as you get lost in mental agitation, you start to shift your body around. So it's a very embodied kind of meditation. So for those of you who have arthritic hips or knees or whatever, it's a good posture, excellent posture, because you don't have to hold your body up like that. But also, it's a very interesting inquiry into identity with body. We so much identify with this body, who I am, and the holding of our presence in this body, that when you're lying there, you don't really have to hold the body. The body will hold itself, and yet you'll find you're holding the body in various kinds of ways. So it's a very interesting investigation into a self-identity with the body, not conceptually, but actually viscerally, physically, energetically. Very, very interesting. Now, people say they fall asleep. Yeah, but then you wake up. So when you wake up, stay there. Don't worry about it. one of the things with lying meditation is that you often snore. And snoring is actually very helpful, because what happens is, as your mind begins to relax, it dips into a deeper state of relaxation. And then it goes or something like that. And actually that wakes you up, but doesn't wake the body up. And your body can go into very deep states of relaxation. And then also quite often, you know, if you get good at it, you find yourself being aware through sleep. That's a bit more advanced, but that's a possibility. So it's an excellent posture for investigation. But realize it's like some people find it difficult to not just lay over on their side, because that's what you want to do, right? You say, well, enough with this, and well, then you've lost the plot. Then you have to start again. So if you want, like here, if you want to explore that, please do not here, not in the so, but in your rooms or out in the grass or wherever. Explore that if you want as a posture. So then, like if you do have like I have arthritic knees, alternating sitting, walking, lying is very doable, very interesting. So I'll leave that to you. With the sitting posture, the one thing I would recommend is that your hips are higher than your knees. I think most of you understand that, because if you're like, this is a great chair for me, whereas the big fat one, that's not a great chair for me, because my knees are higher than my hips, and here my hips are higher than my knees. So when your hips are higher than knees, your pelvis is tilted forwards, which helps the small of your back. That's why we use zafus and things like that. Now, I used to have a very good like full lotus posture and Burmese posture, but I can't do that. I'm an old man. So lifting up my spine is quite important. So if on a chair, investigate those kinds of things. But I think most of you, know that already, but it's a good one to keep in mind. So those three things. So I've talked a lot. Let's stretch your legs a bit, and then we'll do a little meditation. And if you want to like switch to chairs, feel free. That's a good thing. If this is going to be a long retreat. So if you want to switch from floor to chair, that's a good idea too. But please don't lie down on me. All right. Here we go. So set up your posture. If you can be still with your posture for long periods of time, it's helpful, but not necessary, as long as you're not forcing that. So there's a difference between restlessness and just physical pain. If you're shifting all the time just from restlessness, then you try to be a bit more still in your posture. If you have pain, well, then you try to move slowly and quietly. So let's begin with sound. Listen to sound. And again, let the sound come to you. So sound is, are you listening synonymous with awareness or observation? And it's a receptive or welcoming observation. Welcoming or receptive listening. So it's about the quality of attention rather than the quality of auditory experience. It's not about the quality of sound. It's the quality of attention. Receptive awareness. And then you notice the silence. Introduce ideas such as non-becoming. You're not trying to get anything. Non-resistance. You're not trying to get rid of anything. Welcoming all things, letting go of all things. Listening, silence. Notice the changing nature of sound. That's the foreground. And the stillness of awareness. It's the background. Perceive sound as in awareness. So I could say that the sound of the air conditioner is over there and I am here. That's true. But another way I could say that that whole sense of here and there is in awareness. So this gives the perception that awareness is space, conscious space. And in that conscious space, there is sound and bodily feeling. So feel your hands. Let the feelings in the hands become conscious. So it's just different than like concentrating on one finger, a second finger, a third finger. You're just welcoming, you're localizing attention on the hands and just letting that kind of come alive. And as you start to feel the warmth and pressure in your hands, that's the foreground. And the background is the same stillness of awareness. So you have both. You have sound, bodily feeling, in awareness. And contemplate stillness. So that's the contemplation of space, awareness of space. So maybe extend that, say, listening to sound, awareness. Now, does awareness have an outer limit? Does it have any boundary? Or does awareness have a center? Is there a fixed point? So this kind of exercise, we're emphasizing awareness rather than the sound. Now listen to sound. Notice the changing nature of sound. And now the stillness of awareness. Take the two. There's the sense of space. Sound is in awareness. And there's a sense of stillness. Sound moves, awareness is still. So these are exercises which bring you to that foreground, background way of contemplation. So then whatever you like to do in meditation. So let's say you like the breath. So feel the breath in awareness. Notice the changing nature of breath, foreground, and the stillness that is awareness. So I'll let you just play around with that. But using the breath as foreground, contemplating the stillness of awareness as background is a very helpful exercise in these kind of contemplations. So I'll shift to the chair and we'll just sit quietly for the rest of the session.